What if everything you've ever seen is a lie? Not a metaphorical illusion, but a veil cast over your perception, distorting what is real and what is merely a shadow. Because hidden deep within the human body lies a forgotten gateway, an ancient eye that doesn't just see the world, it sees through it. Across forgotten temples and encrypted scrolls, from the sands of ancient Egypt to the mountaintops of Tibet, this eye has been revered, feared, and even systematically concealed. They called it Ajna in Sanskrit, the Eye of Horus in Kemet, the seat of the soul by Descartes. But what if I told you this isn't just a chakra on some spiritual chart? This isn't about psychic powers or seeing ghosts. The third eye, in its truest form, is a lens, one that collapses illusion, rewires perception, and reveals the architecture of reality itself. In this video, we're not just going to talk about where the third eye is. We'll travel back to when ancient initiates used it to decode the hidden language of the cosmos. We'll unravel why modern society desperately wants you to dismiss it as woo-woo nonsense. And more importantly, we'll explore how you can begin activating this eye within you. You'll discover what ancient texts really meant by seeing without seeing, why light and darkness are both illusions to the unopened eye, and how perception is not passive, it's programmable. If you've ever felt like there's more to this world than what your five senses allow, if you've sensed that your intuition is more than just a hunch, then stay close. Because what we're about to uncover may just change the way you see everything forever. Ready to open your inner eye? Let's begin. Long before the rise of modern science and material logic, ancient civilizations spoke of a hidden Saita divine perception buried within the human temple. In Egypt, it was symbolized by the Eye of Horus, a sacred icon not merely of protection, but of perception beyond death, deception, and duality. The left eye, tied to the moon and intuition, the right eye, to the sun and logic. Together, they represented harmony, but above them both hovered a third eye, the one that sees without separation. In India, the concept flourished as Ajna, the sixth chakra. It wasn't just a spiritual energy center, it was believed to be the seat of higher consciousness, the bridge between the ego and the infinite. Yogic texts describe this eye as the gateway to inner realms, a doorway through which sages would glimpse the vast ocean of truth lying beneath the waves of illusion, Maya. The Greeks were no strangers to this idea either. Plato spoke of a divine eye that, once purified, could perceive absolute truth not through the senses, but through the soul. In the mystery schools of Eleusis and Delphi, initiates underwent symbolic death and rebirth to awaken this inner sight. They emerged changed not with more knowledge, but with gnosis, direct knowing. The Mayans, too, aligned their temples and pyramids to celestial bodies not for worship, but for synchronization with cosmic vision. Their third eye? Not a symbol, but a practice, an initiation into seeing energy, vibration, and time in ways the modern mind would call madness. To these ancient cultures, the third eye wasn't just a part of the brain, it was the mechanism of awakening. A luminous aperture that, when activated, could pierce through illusion and reveal the architecture of the divine. It was the key to experiencing reality instead of merely observing it. The philosopher Descartes, often cited for his rationalism, believed the pineal gland nestled deep between the two brain hemispheres was the seat of the soul. A strange statement from a man obsessed with logic, unless he too sensed the veiled power of this ancient organ. So why did this knowledge fade? Why are modern textbooks silent on what ancient temples shouted in gold and stone? Because true perception is dangerous to systems built on control. If you could see through programming, if you could discern truth without relying on outside authority, if your third eye truly opened, you wouldn't be easy to manipulate. You wouldn't consume blindly, obey passively, or fear death like a sheep before slaughter. This is why mystics were exiled, why sacred scrolls were burned, and why, today, the third eye is marketed as a quirky chakra you can balance with crystals. Instead of the cosmic lens, it truly is. So now that we've unearthed the ancient context, the forgotten reverence, and the philosophical power behind the third eye, it's time to go deeper. To understand what this eye actually is, how it works, and how you might already be glimpsing its light without even realizing it. Imagine this. You're standing in a dark room, in your hand, a flashlight, You turn it on, and suddenly shapes emerge: walls, corners, perhaps a mirror. But have you created those objects by shining the light, or merely revealed what was always there? This is how the third eye operates. It doesn't invent truth. It reveals what's been hidden, in plain sight. Let's strip away the fluff. The third eye is not a mystical button you press to see ghosts or float in the astral. It is a faculty of perception, mode of direct knowing that transcends the five senses. Think of it as an antennationed not to light, sound, or touch, but to meaning, pattern, truth. The pineal gland, often associated with the third eye, is not just symbolic, it's biologically profound. It's light sensitive. It regulates circadian rhythms. But most mysteriously, it contains photoreceptive cells similar to those in the retina. In other words, you literally have an eye inside your brain. But this eye doesn't look outward. It looks inward and beyond. Ancient traditions like Vedanta teach us that reality as we know it is my illusion, but not in the sense of being fake. Rather, our perception is a limited interface, like a user dashboard that hides the chaotic code behind it. We see color but not electromagnetic fields. We hear sound but not frequency beyond a narrow band. We touch form but miss the atomic emptiness beneath. The third eye bypasses these filters. It doesn't rely on seeing; with the eyes it perceives essence. It detects what is, rather than what is permitted by the senses. Let me tell you a story. There was once a child born into a cave, where all he could see were flickering shadows on the wall. He grew up believing those shadows were the whole world. One day, someone showed him a mirror and he realized the shadows were reflections of things outside the cave. But stepping out was painful. The light burned his eyes. Still, he pressed on, until he saw the sun itself. That sun was truth, and his journey, that was the opening of the third eye. This isn't just a fable, it's a metaphor for your mind. The shadows are the media, the programming, the assumptions. The cave is your conditioned reality, and the sun is the direct light of consciousness. Esoteric symbols have always hinted at this duality of vision. The eye of Horus is split into 6 parts, each representing a different sensory input, but when whole, it becomes something more: sight beyond division. The bindi worn in Hindu culture isn't decorative, it marks the point of inner vision. Buddhist statues show the Buddha with half-closed eyes, not fully asleep, not fully awake, but gazing inward and outward at once. This is the hallmark of the awakened seer: to perceive the world, and the illusion of the world, at the same time. But here's the paradox. The third eye doesn't just show you what's real, it often destroys what you thought was real, and that can be terrifying. Because to truly see means to surrender comfort, to leave the cave, to risk madness for clarity. But the reward is nothing less than liberation. Here's the strange thing about awakening the third eye. Before it grants you vision, it often blinds you. Not literally, but metaphysically. Because what you thought you knew, what you were certain was real, begins to crack. The world stops making sense in the way it once did. And that's exactly the point. The third eye doesn't bring clarity by giving you new facts. It shatters illusion by dissolving the lens through which you judge all facts. It's less like putting on glasses and more like taking them off and realizing your eyes were covered all along. Let's address one of the biggest misconceptions. The third eye is not about clairvoyance, fortune-telling, or becoming a spiritual superhero. Yes, heightened intuition, vivid dreams, and precognition may happen as side effects. But these are not the point. In fact, they can become distraction, spiritual candy that keeps seekers from the true path. The true power of the third eye is this: seeing reality without the filters of ego, fear, and conditioning. Not predicting the future, but seeing the present so clearly. That illusion has nowhere left to hide. But this power comes with a cost. Because when you see too much too soon, you may lose your grip on what's familiar. Some spiritual texts warn of madness. Others of the ego co-opting awakening and turning it into arrogance. The third eye can be like a blade, sharp enough to cut through illusion, but dangerous if wielded by an unprepared mind. This is why many ancient traditions required years of purification, fasting, silence, and ethical training before the inner eye was activated. They understood what modern seekers often forget. Clarity without grounding leads to collapse. So, how do you awaken this eye safely? The answer is inner alchemy. You don't force the eye open. You clear the obstructions. Fear, attachment, illusion, identity. This is echoed in Hermeticism, which taught that, as within, so without. That the microcosm, your inner world, must be brought into harmony before you can gaze into the macrocosm and not be consumed by it. It's also why the third eye is associated with the color indigo, not just for aesthetics, but because it represents the twilight space between darkness and light. A liminal state. A portal. Modern life is engineered to drown out the third eye. Screens, noise, endless stimulation. But the third eye doesn't shout, it whispers. And if you want to hear it, you must become still. Truly still. This is why mystics retreated to caves, deserts, or mountaintops. Not to escape reality, but to amplify it. Because when the outer world goes silent, the inner eye begins to speak. And what it says is not always comforting. It shows you your masks, your wounds, your illusions. But beyond that, it shows you truth. Naked, raw, infinite. Now that we've peeled back the layers, now that you understand the depth, the danger, and the divine paradox of the third eye, you might be wondering, can I actually awaken it? Is there something I can do today to begin that process? The answer is yes, but not through tricks or shortcuts. Let's dispel one more illusion. You do not need to live in a Himalayan cave or renounce all worldly pleasure to begin awakening your third eye. The ancient path was cloaked in mystery, yes, but its essence was always meant to be lived in the world, not apart from it. What matters most is intention, discipline, and inner stillness. The third eye is already within you. You're not building it, you're remembering it. Technique 1, the practice of inner stillness, Trataka plus darkness meditation. Let's begin with the simplest but most overlooked key, darkness. The pineal gland is sensitive to light not just physically, but energetically. To nourish it, you must return to what it understands best, the void. One powerful practice, Trataka or yogic gazing. Sit in silence, light a candle at eye level, about 3 feet away. Gaze at the flame without blinking for 1-3 minutes. Let your vision blur. Then close your eyes, and observe the afterimage at the center of your brow. This does 2 things. 1. Trains your concentration, activating the muscle of inner vision. 2. Stimulates the pineal gland and induces hypnagogic imagery, the dreamlike space between waking and sleep. Another method, darkness meditation. Sit in a pitch-black room or use an eye mask. Focus attention at the space between the brows, breathing slowly. Over time, you may begin seeing lights, symbols, or vast inner spaces. This is your third eye stirring. Technique 2, pineal gland decalcification and activation. Let's talk biology for a moment. Modern diets, stress, and environmental toxins, like fluoride, may impair the pineal gland. While this is debated, many spiritual traditions still suggest cleansing protocols. Avoid processed foods, especially refined sugar and artificial additives. Drink pure water. Include pineal-friendly foods, raw cacao, blue-green algae, tamarind, and turmeric. Spend time in natural sunlight during the day and absolute darkness at night. Why? Because this rhythm syncs your body's natural melatonin cycle, closely linked to the gland's activity. Also, sound can be powerful. Binaural beats in the 432 Hz or 963 Hz range are said to stimulate the third eye region during meditation. Use headphones, sit in stillness, and allow the frequencies to work through you, not at you. Technique 3, cultivating the witness state. None of this matters if your mind stays noisy. The third eye opens not through effort but through presence. Try this throughout your day. Pause. Observe your thoughts as if watching clouds drift across a sky. Don't judge, don't resist, just witness. This is called Sakshi Bhava in yogic traditions, the witness attitude. It dissolves identification with thoughts and opens the space of direct perception. That space is where the third eye comes alive. As you begin these practices, you might encounter resistance. Your mind will doubt. Distractions will increase. You may even feel more confused at first. This is normal, because opening the eye means shining light into shadows you've avoided. Be gentle, stay curious, and always return to breath, silence, and presence. You are not learning to see with a new organ. You are remembering how to see with your whole being. So here we are. You've peered into myths, mysteries, and methods surrounding the third eye. But if this journey has revealed anything, it's this. The third eye isn't a destination. It's a mirror. And when you gaze into it long enough, it doesn't show you spirits, energies, or distant galaxies. It shows you yourself. Not the version others see. Not the one shaped by fear, trauma, or ambition. But the silent witness. The eternal seer within. The ancients didn't revere the third eye because it was mystical. They revered it because it was liberating. They knew that real power isn't in conquering others but in seeing clearly. Not controlling the world but understanding that perception creates the world. This isn't woo-woo, it's awakening. A realignment of your inner compass, from noise to knowing, from reaction to realization. So the real question now isn't, tu es massacre or calm? How do I open my third eye? But rather, am I ready to see? To see the truth behind masks. To see beauty in chaos. To see yourself, not as a fixed identity but as a living stream of awareness. And maybe, just maybe, when enough of us awaken this sacred sight, we'll no longer live in a world of illusion, division, and control, but in one of truth, unity, and inner freedom. If this message stirred something inside you, don't let it fade. Pause. Breathe. Reflect. And share this with someone who's ready to awaken. Not just their mind, but their vision. Subscribe if you're walking this path with us. Comment with your thoughts, your questions, your visions. Because this isn't the end. This is the beginning of seeing. Until next time, keep your eyes open. And your real eye even wider.